Okay, welcome everyone to today's Google Webmaster Central Office Hours Hangouts. My name is John Mueller. I'm a Webmaster Trends Analyst here at Google in Switzerland. And part of what we do is talk with webmasters and publishers, like the ones here in the Hangout, the ones that submitted questions, and those in our help forums as well. As always, let's start off with maybe a question from one of you, Gal. Is there something on your mind that you didn't get a chance to submit as a question that we should talk about?
I've got a question if no one's going to go.
All right, go for it.
Um, so say if I've got a website and I'm targeting different languages, so for example, I've got your main domain, then /fr. So if we take the home page as an example, the /fr is an exact replica of that other home page, and it's been set up with your ahreflang tags. Now, if I've built links into the main domain, so just standard /, how does Google treat the page rank? Does it assume that the /fr is exactly the same because it's clearly a duplicate, so it has the same amount of page rank on the fr or /UK site, say folder, than it would on the main homepage, or does it treat that as a page and take the page rank from the main homepage and split it evenly?
We basically, when it comes to language and country versions, we treat them as separate pages, and we rank them as separate pages. We do all of the indexing, all of the signals as separate pages, and then only when it comes to showing them in the search results do we take the hreflang information and swap the URLs out. So in that case, we would see those links like any other links that you would have on your website.
Would the page be less stronger? So say, for example, I've got, say, 1,000 links into the main homepage, and I've set up this new structure, no links at all. So when you do swap those URLs out, will it be will it not be as strong? Or I'm just trying to, like, is it just as strong if we just look at link equity as a whole and nothing else? Is it just as strong as the equivalent pages that do have links? Or is it?
I wouldn't necessarily look at it from that point of view. I just kind of think if you didn't have those local pages, would the .com pages rank in the local search results? And if they would rank, then we'd swap the URLs out against the appropriate local versions. So if you have a website, I don't know, that's targeting furniture, and you have a UK website and it doesn't show at all in France, for example, then just setting up the hreflang with completely new pages for France wouldn't change anything because we wouldn't have anything to swap out. It wouldn't be that your UK page would be accidentally ranking. On the other hand, if you have, like, for Germany and Austria, where the content is German, both the same, and your pages for the country of Germany happen to rank in Austria, then that would be something that we could swap out.
Okay, no, that kind of makes sense. So if it would rank naturally anyway, you would just generally swap it out and you would base it on those signals. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll tell as an answer. Thanks.
All right.
Can I have a follow up a bit on with another question on more on geo-targeting?
Sure.
So let's say you have I don't know, a hotel, for example, in Bucharest, and you're kind of targeting both Romanian people who are in Bucharest and are looking for another city in Romania and are looking for a hotel in Bucharest, but you're also targeting people from, I don't know, UK that like to come to Romania and are searching from the UK beforehand to kind of book the hotel and everything. How much of a problem would it be if the hotel's website is on a Romanian domain, on a .ro domain? I noticed that Google does rank some of the local TLDs when the query is specific. So, like, if somebody looks for Hotel Bucharest, might show some .ro domains.
Yeah, I mean, those are essentially two different aspects that we'd look at there. On the one hand, geo-targeting would really only apply for users in Romania. So that's something that's kind of specific to general geo-targeting. On the other hand, if someone explicitly searches for that location, then from a relevance point of view, it would make sense to show search results from that location. And obviously, you could theoretically combine this if you say, well, I have a lot of people from the UK who come to my Romanian hotel because it's really popular with people in the UK, then maybe it makes sense to set up a page specifically for users in the UK, where maybe you have the prices in pounds, or you have whatever information people from the UK would be looking for that other users might not be looking for.
Well, the website already has like an English version of the site with prices and everything in, I don't know, pounds, let's say, but it's still on .ro domain. So does geotargeting affect how UK users would find the website in
No.
the search result?
Yeah, in that case, we wouldn't be able to geo-target to UK users because the .ro domain essentially geo-targets to Romanian users by default. So that's, especially I think for tourist type sites, that's always a bit tricky, because you don't, on the one hand, you don't want to create too many websites. On the other hand, maybe you do have like a target audience in the UK or in a different country that you really want to specifically target, and that's not something you'd easily be able to do with an .ro domain. Obviously, content on .ro can rank globally, but you wouldn't be able to geo-target it specifically for those users.
Oh, okay. I'm not really interested in geo-targeting. I just want to know that should I recommend to the client that they move to a .com domain instead, to a GTLD? Would they rank, would the rankings on other in other countries be affected?
Um, if,
I mean,
if you're if you're targeting like all kinds of countries, then I wouldn't necessarily move to .com. But if you really have like this really strong target audience in the UK that you want to target, like I don't know, some vacation places might be really well known in the UK because everyone from the UK goes to vacation to, I don't know, Mallorca or somewhere like that. And in a case like that, it might make sense to actually do geo-targeting for users in the UK. But otherwise, for like a general hotel where you say, well, I have a lot of people from here, 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 and here, you don't really need to do geo-targeting.
Okay, so a .ro domain is fine if you're targeting like everybody, everywhere, as
Yeah,
long as they're searching for a localized query like hotel in Bucharest or something like that.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
John, I might continue the theme if that's okay.
Go for it.
Yeah, so basically I've been tasked to look at a potential client's website, and we're going to do a pitch. And as part of that, I had a look around, and they're an e-com business that is set up as a .com, and they're pointing to a number of different country-specific folders. UK, US, Australia, all the sort of Western English speaking, and then a couple of internationals. While I was doing my research, because I don't have a lot of access at the moment, I went to google.co.uk, and I'm based in Australia, and did a search for just their business. And of course, it comes up with a number of different site links. Now, all the site links at the time referenced Australia, which I found interesting, and I considered that potentially they hadn't done the geo-targeting within Webmaster Tools. Is that fair to say?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes it's from. So it's not the case that we would always show just the country-specific site links. Especially with site links, it's something I've seen quite a bit, where another client is unhappy. Especially with site links, it's something I've seen quite a bit, where we show different country site links there as well. So it's possible that you could use geo-targeting, that you could use hreflang to kind of help guide us to the right direction, but it's not something that you'd be able to kind of get rid of completely just by doing geo-targeting and hreflang.
Yeah, sorry, I'm having some issues over here. But no, that's great. Potentially, so this is it is an issue, and it's something that I'm going to need to resolve. The other thing that I considered was because I'm based in Australia and using google.co.uk, whether or not Google takes that into consideration because I'm Australian based and therefore it's still delivering me Australian results through google.co.uk.
If you're using google.co.uk, it should be for the UK automatically. What you can also do is use the URL parameters. So there's a GL equals parameter where you can select a country
Of course.
code to kind
Yep.
of really say, I want the UK specific search results.
So that would be, you would think that would be the same results if I went to google.com.au and then use GL UK?
No, if you go to google.com.au, then you probably get a weird mixture. But if you went to google.com generically, then you would probably get something similar to what a user in the UK would see. But if you just go to google.co.uk directly, then you should also see similar results there. But I think you have more clients waiting for you.
Just my son.
So one
Sorry,
thing you could also do in a case like that is think about setting up some kind of a banner on these pages where you'd say, well, it looks like you're from the UK and this is the page for Australia. Here's the link to the local version where you're probably better served. Some bigger sites do it like that, and it makes it so that people in the wrong location can still view that content. It doesn't automatically redirect them, so we can still index that content as well. But it still kind of guides them to a version that's better suited for their specific location.
Yeah, so the user experience isn't perfect, but it's getting better.
Yeah.
I suspect that they actually do some sort of redirection depending on the location as well, but I'm not, because I'm not in that location, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's always a tricky thing to do because Googlebot will probably see those redirects as well and will end up being confused fairly easily. So if you have UK and Australia, probably not so much, but especially if you have a US version and an UK version and you redirect US users from the UK to the US version, then Googlebot probably won't be able to crawl those UK pages. And English only is maybe okay, but if you have like a different language and the US, then we might not ever get those language pages in.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, sure. All right, let me run through some of the questions that were submitted, and then we can open it up for more questions from all of you. Does Google prefer ranking category pages or detail pages like articles and specific products? So I guess with or questions, you can always say yes or no, and both would be yes. From my point of view, it's really we try to match based on the relevance of the query and to figure out what people are actually looking for. And sometimes they're looking for categories or lists of items. Sometimes they're looking for specific items. So depending on what we think the user is looking for, we'll try to match one of these pages. And it's not the case that there's any advantage or disadvantage to having category pages or detail pages. So they're essentially just different types of pages that we try to rank differently. What if I have 6 links within the content from one page to another page, but the links point to the same target but use different anchor text? Does Google treat these links as separate links and transfer signals to each of them, or does it treat them as one link? So this is the kind of question we get every now and then, and usually what I end up doing is talking with the engineers to see what is the flavor of treatment for today. And I don't really think that helps you very much because the way we handle it now might be different than from the way that we handled it before, and it might be different from the way that we handle it next week. So this is the type of thing where you're almost looking at kind of the theoretical view of how Google might treat these 6 links, how it would split up the page rank or kind of distribute the anchors there. And I don't really think that's too helpful there. So I wouldn't focus on what specifically is happening here now, but just assume that we'll try to figure out what it means, what the context of these pages is between each other. So in practice, what will probably happen is we recognize all of those anchor texts and try to associate them somehow. In theory, it might be that we kind of split that up in certain ways to better kind of process that on our side. So I wouldn't focus on any specific setup that you might figure out is happening now there, but try to create a website that works well naturally, where we can kind of naturally understand the context of the pages that you're linking between each other there. Search console question. When changing domains, the backlinks show up in a new profile. In a site move, the ranks fell considerably, and the homepage doesn't show up in the backlinks anymore. 301 redirects were in place. Homepage is the only one with an issue. Is this a problem? I don't know. I'd probably have to look at the specific case, what's happening there. So in general, I don't think it's by design that we would show kind of redirects directly in the backlink section, but rather what we would try to do is show the original link where it came from. So if some site linked to your previous homepage, and from there you're redirecting to your new homepage, then we should be showing you the final destination, like the new website that you have, and on there showing the original source, so where that link originally came from. I think showing kind of the intermediate steps as a separate link wouldn't necessarily make sense because it's kind of confusing. So I wouldn't focus on that homepage not being shown as a link as any kind of a signal that something is wrong with that homepage. Of course, that doesn't mean that nothing is wrong. So this is something where I probably need to see the URL to kind of see what specifically is happening there. And depending on what kind of a site move you're doing, if you're changing the content, if you're redirecting everything properly, if the new domain has any type of older issues perhaps, then there are a few things that could go wrong that could hold you back. But in general, we've gotten a lot better with site moves. So I'd assume, for the most part, if you've been paying attention to all of the technical details of like what you need to redirect and how, then that should kind of work. So if you're seeing that it's not working, I'd love to kind of get those URLs so that we can double check here. We have a page, company.com/product, that we want to promote using a separate domain, product.com, which will 301 redirect to company.com/product. Which domain will benefit from external links to product.com? Is the link juice passed on to company.com/product? Link juice, I guess, PageRank. In general, if you're redirecting from one URL to another URL, then we'll try to forward all of our signals to that new URL. It kind of depends on which URL we choose to show as a canonical, though. So specifically, if you have something like a website for product.com and you have a subpage for that same product on a different website, it's sometimes a question of, do users expect to see product.com in the search results, or do they expect to see your company.com/product in the search results? So that's something where sometimes the decision on which URL is canonical might be different from what you would expect. It kind of depends on all of the canonicalization signals that you give us. So redirect is obviously a really strong signal, be it 301 or 302. Things like rel canonical are really useful. Sitemaps, so the URL within a sitemap file is really useful. Internal linking is really useful for us. So all of these things kind of add up, and we look at those two URLs and say, well, we have this one and we have this one. Which one should we show? Then depending on the signals, we might say, OK, well, we'll show this one because that has the stronger signals. Everything kind of adds up to that specific URL. And the URL that we choose as a canonical is the one that ends up getting these signals. So if there's a link to product.com and product.com redirects to a different URL, but we select product.com as a canonical, then that URL will be the one that collects the PageRank and any of the other signals that we have associated with that. Can we use AMP for product websites or educational websites? Yes, of course you can. We've seen a bunch of websites that use AMP exclusively. They essentially moved all of their templates over to an AMP template, and that works fairly well. You can definitely do that. So just because a website or pages from a website are not shown with the AMP viewer doesn't mean that you can't profit from kind of the technology behind AMP that really enables you to make really, really fast and responsive websites. So for example, I think the AMP project website is one that's actually written up in AMP. So that's something that shows in the search results. It looks like a normal website, obviously, when you open it in the browser, but the technology behind it is essentially AMP. So if you want to use AMP for any kind of website, any kind of pages within your website, you're welcome to do that. With regards to us showing it in the AMP viewer, you probably need to wait until we actually show that type of page within an AMP viewer. I suspect that's something that's going to happen fairly soon because the AMP team is really, I don't know, they not only make fast websites, but they really move quickly with the product changes as well. So I could definitely see them going forwards to actually using AMP pages with the AMP viewer in more and more different types of content. Our signals for user satisfaction with content different for longer articles versus shorter articles. How can you compare the quality of two results on the same topic if one is long and the other is short? That's sometimes really hard. It's like in this example here, 1,500 words versus 500 words, that's almost kind of the same order of magnitude. But sometimes we have situations where one thing is like a 500-word article, and the other one is a 100-page PDF document that has like tons of content in it. And we kind of have to figure out what the balance is, what people are looking for, which part of the pages we should pull out as being the more relevant or more important parts of the page, and then figuring out how to rank those appropriately. And that's not necessarily something that has to do with user satisfaction, but we try to figure out what's relevant for the user, what are they looking for, and to show that in the search results. And sometimes that could even be a mix where we say, well, they're looking for specific documentation on a problem, and here's a 100-page PDF, and the next result is like a 5-line article that just has a bunch of links to more information. And that's something that could definitely show up in the same search results page. We had a manual penalty 4 years back. We came out of the penalty in 1 year. We still feel that we have a Penguin algorithmic penalty. I'd like to know, what does the Penguin algorithmic penalty affect the website site-wide, or specific keywords or specific sections? So Penguin, from our point of view, is a web spam algorithm that looks at issues around web spam. Oh, wow. Lights on, lights off. And essentially, it tries to look at that on a site-wide level and to figure out like what specific action it should take here. And it's theoretically possible that you had some kind of a manual action on issues that the algorithms also picked up on, which could be something that might take more time to kind of settle down again. We don't have a specific date for the update of the Penguin algorithm, but in talking with the team, they feel they're getting closer and closer, so I'm hoping that's not all too far in the future.
Can I ask on that? So would Penguin target specific anchor text? Just for example, if a site, we had a load of sites that just nailed use cars over and over and over again. So I've seen instances where rankings for specific phrases have dropped for the site, and then when you kind of look into it, it's then these links with all this exact match anchor text that seems to match that. So will it focus on specific anchor text? Like, okay, well, anything with this anchor text in there coming from these kind of sites, we will devalue therefore, or divide the site because of that,
So I wouldn't say specific to Penguin, but I could definitely see that our other algorithms or algorithms in general would pick up on those kind of issues. But I've also seen that the manual WebSAM team sometimes goes in there and says, oh, this is a problem that we're not picking up with our algorithms. We need to take a manual action to kind of help even things out again. And that's something where you might see something like, I believe it's called a partial action or partial manual action or something like that in Search Console, where we would flag that as like we've been taking action on part of the links to your website based on unnatural patterns that we found. And it's kind of like, well, we're not throwing your website out completely, but some of these links seem problematic. And sometimes the WebSAM team will also do that with things like negative SEO, or where people do reputation management, and that maybe there's an article on your website about a specific person, and it's just a normal article, and they're doing reputation management and want to push other results out, so they're buying tons of links to that specific article on your website, and you don't have anything to do with that. You don't really, it's not like your problem, essentially, and we just try to kind of tackle that by removing some of these things manually through the manual actions there. But that's something that we flag in Search Console, so you're kind of aware of what's happening there.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure if it'd be the page. So you're looking at the page and you look at the links, or you're just specifically looking at the links and looking at the anchor text and kind of like making a judgment based on that. So if you've got all these links going to all these different pages, you just devalue all them, and it doesn't matter what pages they're linking to. It's the link itself.
I would expect that we do all of that.
Right. Okay. So
I mean, we have a lot of practice with the way weird links happen on the web, and there are lots of weird link kind of setups, and they're not all malicious. You know, it's like someone, like the reputation management case, where someone is trying to promote your pages because they don't want other bad pages showing up, and it's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's just, well, just like, I don't even want to show up for those queries that much, or it doesn't bother me if I do show up, or if I don't show up, I don't have anything out of it. So these are things that have been taking place since Google came out. So we have a lot of practice in looking at these in different ways and trying to figure out what's the pattern here, what do we need to watch out for, what can we kind of filter out in our system so that it doesn't cause any problems, where do we kind of need to take stronger action because maybe we can't pick up everything that's causing problems here. We try to find a balance there. And that can obviously change over time, where we say, well, we do this manually at the moment, but in the future we think an algorithm will be able to take over and we can stop doing stuff manually that much.
John, can I just ask a related question, Penguin sort of thing?
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. You've heard every one of them. It's just about the punitive side of Penguin. I think kind of we talked to a few web hangouts ago that there is some kind of punitive side, and that's probably deserved. But it's more that I don't know if you're able to give any more information on that side of things. So, for example, if someone does a great job of disavowing, and there is sufficient time left for Google to reindex, and it's not too difficult to check. You can check the Google cache, and you can have a look at kind of how it's going with kind of Google reindexing the sites that are listed and so on. But even if a really, really great disavow file submitted, and even if you get to a point where pretty much all of those URLs specified are reindexed, even then, if Penguin ran the next day, or any web spam algorithm ran the next day to run its updates and change the rankings, there's still obviously another part of the process that's kind of sitting in there, and that's the bit we don't really talk about very much. We talk about disavow file and the process and that kind of stuff, but we don't talk about the punitive side. And I was just wondering if you might be able to give any more details on that side of things so that people kind of know what they're going to expect, given you kind of said Penguin might be coming along quite soon.
I don't know. I think there's kind of a fluid transition there, I guess, with regards to like how much we can ignore to when we notice that it's really, really a lot of problematic web spam type things that are associated with that page. So it's kind of, I guess, like a a fluid connection between those two sides. And I think if you're doing a good job of like doing the disavow file, making sure that these things are cleaned up, then I would expect that things kind of settle down in a nicer state for that site over time.
John, can I clarify that then? Because as far as I understood, there is almost no such thing as a penalty as such. You're always just scaling back to what you genuinely should be. You're not being punished from a genuine place down to a minus position. You're being taken from a plus position back to a neutral where you should have been all along if you didn't have the links. It's not really a penalty at all.
Mostly. It's mostly like that. So it's, I guess one of the things that we see sometimes is that it's hard for us to pick out what exact pattern is a problem here. And sometimes what will happen is we'll pick a kind of a slightly broader pattern to kind of capture all of those problematic issues that we found there with regards to web spam links or whatever. And if you have legitimate links that also fall into that pattern, then they might be dropped as well, because we see, well, most of the things in this pattern are problematic, so sometimes even the legitimate stuff will kind of fall into that as well, which is something that happens with, I guess, a lot of issues around the web, because we can't always pick out a pattern that's so specific that it really only covers the problematic parts of your website and doesn't touch anything else out there. So we try to be as granular as possible, but we can't guarantee that we'll only be able to kind of tackle those problematic links.
I mean, John, I think that's fine. I mean, I can only, as you know, we've talked before, and our site has a serious backlink problem. But we did this link building stuff, and it started 5.5 years ago, and it finished 3.5 years ago, and we haven't done anything since. The site, the business has grown, it's got lots of natural links since, but we hadn't disavowed everything until last time. And actually, we were kind of, I mean, this is probably an example that's similar to maybe some other people as well, but we were, lucky is maybe not the right word, but we used a very professional company at the time, 5.5 years ago, and they sent us every month every single link that they built, because that's the basis of their charging model. So we can quite confidently say that we can submit every single one of the links that they've built for us at a domain level, and also do a huge kind of audit as well, go through Webmaster Search Console and Ahrefs and so forth, and submit a disavow list which we're 100% sure contains every single manipulative link that ever existed. And you said last time, I think, that Google doesn't hold a grudge, and so the kind of question is, what would we and other sites that have done that sort of thing kind of expect? I mean, I would expect that there should be a recovery at some point, but you perhaps indicated in the past that you might have a long wait, and that wait isn't necessarily related to how long it's going to take to reindex those sites in the disavow file, because actually, in my very limited experience, it doesn't take Google very long to do that. Most links tend to get reindexed in a month or two, maybe 3 or 4 at the max if you've got a site with thousands of links. But it's more the punitive side or the other side that sits on top of that I think I'm quite interested in trying to find out about.
I suspect that that's something that you'll see kind of settle down in a positive way for you over time, like when we're able to roll this new change out.
Okay. So again, it sounds, again, you've said this before, but if you do a great job of disavowing, and it really genuinely is a great job, it's not I think Matt Cutts called it the whole kind of fine-tooth comb versus the whatever. As long as you do a great job, then in time, perhaps not too long, then hopefully you'll kind of see some kind of positive.
Yeah. I mean, the other aspect that Rob mentioned is something that also definitely plays a role there, where if your site was ranking really well because of those unnatural links, and you remove all of those unnatural links, then your site is going to rank like where it would otherwise rank without those unnatural links. So it's something where you can't necessarily say, well, I was ranking #1 before, and now when this update runs, I'll be ranking #1 again, because maybe you were kind of undeservedly ranking #1.
I think that's very fair, and I think we were absolutely undeservedly ranking #1, but I think it's more that we don't expect a full recovery. It's more, I think you've described it in the past as Penguin or some of these web spam filters being a bit like an anchor that pulls the site down. I think it's more a point of, we'd quite like the anchor to be removed and then to be judged on the actual genuine benefit of the content on the site type of thing.
Yeah, I think that's something where if you've done a real good job with the disavow, then you'll definitely see that happen.
Thanks. Cheers.
Okay, let me run through the few remaining questions, and we'll definitely have time for more, I guess, from you. How can a new site, 2 months old, prove to Google that it's not spammy faster than in 6 months? For me, search results difference is staggering: 1 through 4 in Bing, 1 through 8 in Yahoo, and 9 through 22 in Google. So I would always expect a difference between the different search engines. I think that's absolutely normal, and that's not something that you could say is a problem, because different search engines look at things in different ways. From our point of view, it definitely takes a bit of time for us to figure out how we should show a new website in the search results. Sometimes what we'll do is almost like assume that this is a good website first, and then hope that the signals kind of confirm that we can say, well, it should really be ranking here, and we kind of keep it settled down there. But especially in the beginning, when you have a new website, especially in a market where there are a lot of existing websites already, it's going to take some time for us to actually understand how your website should be shown in the search results. And that's not something that you can force, not something that you can kind of speed up and say, okay, Google, just rank me #1 from the start, because we kind of want to make sure that we're doing the right thing for your website, for the users that might be looking for your website. So there's no fast path, I guess, to...
Yeah, so John, when you are assuming a new website to put in ranking, how do you decide which place this should be? Because you are just ranking this on assumptions.
That's definitely the case, and that's hard. That's something where, I mean, on the one hand, we have the content of the page itself. We kind of see how it roughly starts off, but we don't have a lot of signals. We don't really know, is this really something that's relevant on the web? Especially if it's a new business, we might not have any links, or we might have very few links to that site. It's really hard. It's not something that I would say we look for a meta tag and then you're automatically ranking. It's something that, like any physical business, it takes time for you to kind of be established on the web, and for people in the neighborhood to understand, okay, if I need shoes, then I'll go to this business here that I kind of trust to have shoes. Whereas if you're new in an area, then people say, well, I have no idea what this business sells. Maybe I'll drop by every now and then to kind of see what they're doing and see what kind of products they have, but I can't guarantee that I'll always be going there. So especially with new websites, that's something where ideally we see things settle down fairly quickly. We kind of understand where this website fits in the context of the whole web, but that does take some time. Okay, more link questions. Our content partner requires us to give do-follow links to their 100,000 zip-coded pages. They view this as data attribution and cited Yelp, Best of the Web, and Zillow as examples. Is it an unnatural link scheme? Please see more details in my post, which I didn't see, so I don't really know what the more details are. But in general, you can look at it from a kind of from taking a step back and think about, would these links be there if there were no partner relationship or no financial relationship between you and this other website? And it sounds like you would not have these links without this relationship with that website. And from that point of view, this is something that we would probably see as unnatural links. So that's, if you want to give attribution to someone who's serving data or content for your website, then that's something where I recommend using a no-follow link so that people can click through, and if they find something useful on that website, they can still go there and kind of see all of that content. But it's not that you're forwarding PageRank just because of a kind of financial or partnership relationship between you and that other website. So from that point of view, I recommend using nofollow links there. And if your content partner has any questions around that, I maybe send them to the help forums or see if they want to join one of the future Hangouts here, and we can look at that more then. I want to ask about AMP pages. It's a very interesting concept. What do you think about SEO by AMP pages? I don't know, SEO for AMP pages, you can definitely do that. So at the moment, the general setup with AMP pages is that there's a rel canonical to your desktop page on the AMP page, and we index your content, we rank your content based on the desktop page. So if you want to do on-page SEO, if you want to make sure that your page uses proper semantic content on the page, then you can do that on your desktop page. You don't have to do that on the AMP page. On the other hand, if you only have AMP versions of your content, like, for example, the AMP project website, then you could do like the semantic markup on those AMP pages directly.
John, can I just ask a question about the topic before, if you don't mind?
Sure.
Real quick. You said relationship, and you keep saying relationship. Now, I'm assuming that's strictly a financial relationship, because if, just for example, if I had a relationship with a journalist at BBC or any other website or website owner, and they wanted to interview me, put that post up there and then link back to me, I wouldn't have said that that was an issue. However, that link wouldn't necessarily be there if I hadn't have reached out to them and they interviewed me or something like that. So where are you drawing the line? Is it strictly financial, whereas offering advice or insight into a particular industry, that would be fine, and then linking back, even though you still have that, you've built that relationship, and that link would only be there. Link wouldn't be there if you hadn't if outreach to them in the first place. So I just want to understand if you're talking strictly financial, or if it's any relationship with any site, then how do you handle that?
So I think financial, or if you're trading something, that's probably the more obvious situation. That's clearly a case where you're saying, well, I get this from you, and in exchange you get this specific link there. When it comes to kind of the more personal relationships, I think that's sometimes a tricky line, and sometimes what will happen is, like, these people and you talk to them and they think you're doing a great job, doing something fantastic, and maybe they link to you because they think you're doing a great job, not specifically because they know you. But on the other hand, sometimes there are situations where, like, oh, we can be buddies, we will do kind of mutual linking back and forth, and kind of the relationship is not there because you think you're doing a good job. It's more there because you kind of have the intent to kind of get these links from someone. So that's definitely an area where I'd say it's really hard to determine exactly what's happening there. And in general, this is something where the web spam team, when they look at it, they kind of assume good intentions. They don't assume by default, oh, I saw that they were posting on the same blog post in the same comments, therefore they know each other, therefore there's a crazy relationship happening there. They'll assume that this is kind of a natural situation where you happen to link to someone that you also know.
Because I just think, especially in the content, it'll be like, this person quoted this from this business, then there's a link to that business, and it's a case of where are we with that? But again, there are so many great sites out there, generally, national media sites that do that naturally anyway. So I think I was just understand whether or not you can't be any kind of relationship. Well, obviously, there's got to be a contact at some point, I think, to kind of get.
Well, I mean, there doesn't have to be a contact, but
it doesn't. But yes, especially you see where I'm coming from, I think.
Yeah, I think the web spam team generally assumes good intentions. So they're not going to, like, dig in and say, oh, this one link, they were both active on the same, I don't know, blog post, comment thread, therefore they know each other, therefore this one link is really going to be problematic. But we do see sometimes situations where websites kind of the whole linking structure for that website is built up out of kind of these reciprocal linkings, and that's something where we say, well, if everything is like that on that website, that's probably kind of weird and not something that we see as natural link. But if this happens every now and then, and even if the web spam team manually looks at it, then I don't see any problem with that.
Okay.
Thank you. This is Simon from New York. I have a follow-up questions.
Sure.
So, if there's a website has a content partnership with another website, and they have large-scale kind of backlink pointing to them as do follow, you can call it data attribution or not. How will Google treat that if they find, is it going to be a penalty or is it going to be algorithmic disqualifying those links? How would you treat that?
It could be different things. So what we'd probably try to do first of all is say, well, we recognize there's an unnatural linking pattern here, and we will just ignore those links. So this is specifically something where we see if a website is otherwise okay, but it has this pattern of unnatural links to other websites, we'll just say, well, to stay on the safe side, we'll just ignore all links from this website in our graphs, in our link graphs. So that's kind of a situation where you, as a website who's kind of putting out those links, you probably wouldn't see much of a change. On the other hand, if we recognize that it's kind of like a big link scheme overall, then maybe the website team would say, well, we also need to demote this website in general because we can't guarantee that we'll be able to take care of all of the unnatural links there.
Okay.
John, there's a kind of fine line between what's a link scheme and what's just a kind of community type of thing. I mean, certainly in the industry I work in, although we don't get involved in this, but there's loads and loads of kind of lifestyle blogs, and they all have their blog roles, and they all link to each other, and it's kind of the done thing. And in one sense, you could look at that and go, hang on a minute, this is just kind of a manipulative type of thing. But on the other hand, it's just a kind of innocent thing that people do. How would Google look at that? Would they kind of err on the side of it's fine, or would they kind of look at that and go, hang on a minute, something dodgy is going on here?
Probably depends on how problematic that is, or how much of a problem it causes in our search results. So I feel like making any judgment call on just blog roll links is kind of probably too vague to do in a general sense. We do notice there are some that are really, really problematic in the sense that it's obviously a clear link scheme, that maybe it's even automated, that the links are placed and removed automatically, or maybe they're even paid to kind of be placed in the blog roll sections and kind of removed when they're not paid, those kind of situations. Those are obviously the easier ones to pick out. And for the rest, it's something where we generally rely on our algorithms to kind of figure out what's the right approach to handle these. And when the website team looks at them, they try to stay, like I mentioned, they try to assume good intentions, and only when they can really tell, well, this is really set up specifically to manipulate the search results rankings, that they'll take action there in a way that would maybe demote some of these sites.
Okay, I mean that is useful. I appreciate you haven't given a specific answer, but at least I guess we know that if we are linked to from one of these type of sites, that's something that we should not just completely ignore, that we should perhaps have a think about.
I don't know. I think if you just occasionally find yourself on a blog roll because someone likes what you're doing, I wouldn't really worry about that. I think it's not something that I'd say is always problematic, and you need to disavow those or get those removed as quickly as possible. We try to be reasonable in our approaches, and we try to make sure our algorithms handle it in reasonable ways, so that it's not something where webmasters have to panic when they see something weird happening. But at the same time, if someone is intentionally going out to try to abuse our systems, then that's something where we would want to take action on.
Okay, thanks.
So don't panic. But again, if you see these things, from my point of view, I like the disavow file, because if you see something like that and you're like, oh, does Google figure this out or not, then you can just throw it in a disavow file and kind of forget about it, because it's taken care of. You don't have to kind of haggle with the other website to get that link removed. You can say, well, I just want this kind of shuffled away, and I don't want to have to worry about whether or not Google automatically takes that into account.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that's a good advice, which is that people that think they're suffering from some kind of filter or penalty and are putting a disavow file together, at least that's kind of some good advice to know that there's a number of very good blogs out there, but they do seem to be involved. They all link to each other. It's very incestuous. If they link to you, but you don't link to them, at least you kind of think, well, I'd put them in the disavow file and I can kind of be safe just in case.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, let me run through the 3 or 4 remaining questions. We want to switch to another shop system. We'll take over all the URLs. What to do with the pages that we don't take over? Should we 301 redirect them, 404 or 410? In general, I'd redirect all pages where you have new equivalent pages, and for everything else, you could 301 maybe to a category level if you think that makes sense, or just create a really good 404 page. And between 404 and 410 is not something I'd worry about. I'd probably just go with 404s and keep it simple. What are the possibilities a website can lose its index? My web page's index count is less compared to last week. So the index status count in Search Console will fluctuate based on whatever happens in our technical backends, and those fluctuations are completely normal. That's not something you need to focus on. I would, however, focus on things like the Search Analytics section in Search Console, where you see which pages are actually ranking. And if you see pages disappear from the index that were actually ranking, then that would point at something more like a technical issue. The index status count includes things like duplicates, includes things like pages that we don't really think are that important. For example, if you have a calendar on your website and it goes into the year 2000 or 2200, say, then that's probably not very useful. That's a lot of content to index, but not something that necessarily gives value to your website. So if those counts go down, it doesn't really change anything. Adding canonical to the same page is correct. So kind of a self-referencing canonical, yes, you can do that. That's no problem. I was wondering what's the best technique to use when trying to fully crawl and index a website with an age verification disclaimer. That's really tricky. I don't have any fantastic advice for you at the moment. That's something where we've been looking to create some kind of a guidance for webmasters, but maybe you'll have to hang tight for that. It's problematic because, on the one hand, Googlebot should see the same content as users would see. On the other hand, if you only show Googlebot an age interstitial, then we'll never be able to index your actual content. So sometimes we see people doing sneaky things like cloaking to Googlebot, but that's not really what we'd like to see. So we'll probably put together some guidelines around how to handle that. In general, if you have a website that has this kind of age verification disclaimer or other kind of legal interstitial, feel free to send me some examples, and feel free to kind of let me know what you would think Google should be doing in these cases, because that is something that we're currently looking at to kind of figure out what we could do to make your lives better and at the same time to make sure that the search results remain relevant.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
Because I was the one who
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So yeah, indeed, as you said, I didn't find any relevant documentation to what can be the best technique to tackle this issue. I did, however, find it was a post from Susan Moskva, if I'm not mistaken, where she said that it may be fine to use JavaScript because we're not entirely cloaking. We're just using it for the short interstitial before the homepage. However, I don't really know, and to be honest, I don't care that much if Google now indexes JavaScript or not. I'm not a gossipy type like oh my god, news or something. However, what I did find is that if I see the cached version, I don't see the fully website. I just see the interstitial page. And it's also the case if I check it in Google Webmasters console, and if I go to fetch and render, I see the same thing. So Googlebot and the users see the same thing, and it's the actual interstitial page with the pop-up age disclaimer. I'm afraid I cannot show you the web page because it's not safe for work.
You can still send me the URL.
Okay.
I mean, at Google, safe for work is very broad because we have to index the web, right?
Okay.
But it's so in general, the cache page should not be executing JavaScript. So if you see the interstitial in the cache page, then that means either you're redirecting to that interstitial page, or we actually get served a static page with that interstitial. So that's from that side, that's something to kind of be aware of. But I guess I don't really have any perfect guidance on how to best handle this at the moment, because like you said, we used to advise to use JavaScript, and nowadays we render JavaScript and we can actually see what the JavaScript would be showing. So that's, I don't know, it's a tricky situation.
Okay, I will keep it like this, and further I can find the pages indexed and a bit of content, so it may go through, but ultimately we want the best solution,
Yeah. So what you can do is do a site query and then the keywords from the actual content to see if we're picking up the actual content as well. And maybe we can pick up the actual content there just the same, even if we do see the interstitial.
Yeah, got it. Thanks.
All right, 1 minute left. Who has one last question?
I'll ask my usual question, since you brought it up earlier today anyway, John, and since it's only 1 minute. And that's, you mentioned earlier in the year that you might have some news for us, or that someone's working on it, specifically working on it, rather than actually go away, Rob. Do you have any news?
I don't have any news, but I recently pushed again to kind of keep the ball rolling there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I still see our competitor doing things that, I mean, obviously it's completely unrelated because they can do what they like at this stage, and it really doesn't matter. But we're actually, if anything, getting worse and worse every year, despite
that
moving
actually,
domains.
Yeah, that shouldn't actually be like that. So that's something where actually the new domain should be standing on its own, and it shouldn't be changing in that regard.
Right, yeah, it's getting worse all the time. So the problem is that the HTML is different now, but the content is essentially the same, because we had 2,000 products with 10-year-old reviews on there. We can't just take it all out, or we could if you said, Rob, just take it all out and start a whole new.
No, yeah.
But it's just, even looking from this year to last year, it's worse, even with and we do get natural links. We don't do anything wrong, as you know. It's just nothing's getting better at all.
Yeah.
And we need to know whether it's time to just literally start again.
Can you send me some queries where you're seeing that happening?
Well, we're just looking at sales, really, rather than rankings.
Okay.
So it's hard because we have a foot in 100, 200 different industries, whether it's wine tasting, helicopter rides. There's so many different things we used to rank for that now we rank for none. It's across the board, as you know. It's not affecting the New York area or the flying. It's literally everything.
Okay.
But I will send you one thing, which is Matt, which is one of our competitors, or our only competitor, which, if we did something like this, I could understand being penalized, which is essentially an image asking for do follow links, which which has been rendered as an image, so it's not even text. I mean, that to me, when we see that and we are where we are and they're where they are, it just makes it for us even worse.
Yeah. I can imagine. Yeah. Okay. I'll continue pushing. No, yeah, I know it must be frustrating.
Hey John, in Rob's case, for example, if you do fold the two websites into like one entity from your point of view, is there any way to kind of check that? Would you, if you would do an info query on one of the websites, it should show if you kind of fold them together to show the other URL, or like in the case that Rob had?
Yeah, you could probably see that with an info query if that were the case. But I don't think that's the case here.
Nothing's ever the
haven't,
case.
I haven't checked specifically for like the info query there, but yeah. But I'll definitely push again to
All right.
make sure.
I'll send you an email to remind you.
Thank you.
You know, because you probably forget otherwise.
Yeah.
Hi, John. Hi. I sent you a message after last hangout through Plus. I imagine you're probably inundated. Is that the best way to contact you?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Every now and then I reach halfway through my inbox and then it fills up again with new stuff. But I try to at least forward all of the things that come in. I can't respond to all of them.
Okay, no worries. Is it best for me to send again, or just
sure
you find it eventually?
You can send it again.
All right, okay. Cool, thank you.
All right.
Sorry, I didn't get that. Sorry, John. What did you say? How you can contact you? Because maybe you have time to look on my website.
Oh, with Google Plus.
Okay, perfect. I was on that profile already.
All right. Thank you all for joining again. I have to run. It's been good talking to you all. Lots of good questions and discussions again. And I think the next Hangouts are set up already. So if there's something still on your mind, feel free to drop the questions in there. Have a good weekend, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.